I'm Oprah as a dude, and I love you all. Great, here we go. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Reyes Reflection podcast. Always free to subscribe and make sure you are following me on those socials at I'm Nathanael Reyes. Per usual, I got to talk about those folks that keep the lights on. ARAVE cards, completing sets one card at a time. Get yourself going on your Pokemon card collection today. Jocko Fuel, clean fuel without compromise. Use promo code REYESREFLECTION to save on your order. Mad Rabbit, be bold, be you. Again, make sure you're using that promo code REYESREFLECTION. And lastly, SMACKIN sunflower seeds. Get yourself a sample pack using my exclusive link in my link tree. Now, intro time for my next guest. I'm super excited to introduce my next guest because we just talked off camera. We're going to throw everything I had planned out the window because we feel that there's a lot going on in today's society. She is a love coach. She helps people with your life, finding your true light within you to help guide you through your life, which is something I try to promote as well. I think more people should try to promote that message instead of the nonsense that gets promoted on television, social media, etc. So I can't wait to get into it. Today I have with me the founder of Love Quest Coaching, who has been featured on various media articles and even got to work with Grant Cardone. She has a TikTok that has gone viral, many that have gone viral actually, with almost 70,000 followers on TikTok. So without further ado, the lovely Lisa Concepcion, welcome to the pod.
Yay! I am so psyched to be here. We are going to tear it up and have an incredible conversation. I can feel it.
I can too. I have that gut feeling. So let's start with this. Men and women, we're clearly vastly different. How does that impact your work? And do you feel like there's a difference within how people even date nowadays, how hard it is to find love? How is it for you trying to help people find love, obviously within themselves, with all the nonsense, and how do you filter out what's right, what's wrong, etc.? I want to hear from you.
Yeah, so you hit it right on the head when you said that there's a lot of anti-love propaganda going on out there on the internet, right? There's a lot of this red pill, we don't like women, women want our money, stay away, they're evil. When in actuality, just like we see in the political landscape, there are two different factions of men and women playing out. There are the men and the women who are like, let's get together, let's build something amazing. I only want to be with you, you only want to be with me. We'll make a family, we'll put our resources together, we'll build something amazing, right? And then maybe the woman would be like, I kind of want to have a side hustle and be here for the children because the world is crazy and I want to make sure that I'm making the decisions here for our kids and not some blue-haired teacher in the school with 56 flags flying in the classroom, right? So that's one faction. Then you have the other faction where they're just hating on each other, right? It's just like these men are just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go off overseas to get women because the women here are disrespectful and they're just so independent and they don't need us and we don't even count. And I think that we saw a big uprising in this past presidential election where the MAGA men who were kind of hanging out quiet in the bushes, like the lion, I think they went into that voting booth and they took out all of their aggression and being pissed off at being called, toxic masculinity just because they want to help a chick in the parking lot put her bottled waters in her trunk. Hi, ma'am. Can I help you with that? No, get away. Okay, sorry. But there are so many women who are feminine, who are not wounded, who would gladly say, oh, aren't you such a sweet gentleman? Yes, please help me with my water. I appreciate that so much. So there are these two different factions playing out. And the challenge that the real men have to go down, unfortunately, is vetting the women and deciding who is of what faction. Are you in the I hate men, I'm dyeing my hair blue, or now they're shaving their heads actually in protest, right? So is that, or are you No, I want to find a man to love and be his wife and be the mother of his children and raise our kids with the values that we are in agreement of in a God-centered relationship with values, family, abuelita, all tía, tío, all the people,
Yep.
and that we all are on the same page where it is God, family, country, and we just all have the same values. So when it comes to my clients, luckily, because of the content I put out, I was a marketer for many, many years. So I'm very keen on really speaking to my ideal client. And I find that my ideal client are people who want to change their lives and are committed to working on whatever it is that they have going on that is preventing them from getting the love and the relationships that they want. And they might find themselves in relationship patterns, dysfunctional patterns. Maybe they attract cheaters, people who lie to them. Maybe they're always attracting people who might be narcissistic. Whatever their thing is, they are committed to taking full responsibility for it. And they're asking the question, what is it in me that keeps attracting this? And
Yeah.
once they ask that question and then they find me on TikTok, Instagram, wherever, they are then inspired to reach out to me. They do a free assessment that's on my website, but they then go down that path of personal development. And that is where we really see the difference between men and women, those two factions. We have men and women who are actively developing themselves personally. They might be going to therapy, they might be taking courses, going to seminars, listening to podcasts like these, looking for information that's beyond the mainstream to help elevate them. And then we have that other faction, very victim mindset. Everything is out to get them. Poor me. Change your language for me because my feelings are hurt. They want the whole world to acquiesce to their own dysfunction. And so we have seen this for quite some time now, and we're pretty much not having it anymore. So I think when it comes to dating, we're going to see a lot of girlies wearing their little MAGA hats and their little America outfits, their little sweatshirts with the flag on it and whatever, because they want to signal to the masculine men who voted Trump, like, hey, I could potentially be your wife. I'm not going to be disrespectful. I'm not going to make you feel unneeded, unwanted, right? So
Yeah.
you're safe with me. And I think there's a lot of men out there who want the green flag from women. They want to know that they are open, that these women are open to them
Yep.
making an advance at them, to them coming and talking to them. I mean, I'm Gen X, right? So in my day, there were no phones, there were no dating apps. It was you saw a cute guy across the bar and you smiled at him and he came over to talk to you.
Right.
And he
Yeah.
brought his three friends over and you had your girls with you and before you know it you're dancing and hanging out. It's just
Yep.
a different time now and I think social media has made us more antisocial than
Yep.
social.
Yeah. There's a lot that you said that I 100% agree with. And slightly different. I'm a millennial. And so I stick out like a sore thumb in my generation because there's a lot of things that people believe in my generation. I say this, everything that I believe was instilled in me as a child and was largely accepted 10, 15 years ago. So, how did I lose my mind if these were all core values that were instilled in me as a kid from media, TV, families? Like, how is my thinking askew? For example, the toxic masculinity crew. I have to be honest, as a man, I fucking hate that. I do. I genuinely fucking hate that because one, it's always women that are saying it. A guy is not going to say to another guy, "You're a toxic masculine man." That's bullshit. First and foremost. Secondly, it's always, in my experience, it's always women that don't want a masculine man because they want to control the household, they want to control certain aspects, but then deep down inside intrinsically, I don't think they want to control things because there's all these, men and women are equal, etc. And that's a slippery slope. And why I say it's a slippery slope is because while I do believe we're equal in significance and importance, we're not equal in capabilities. Now, you can come at me with exceptions. You can say, well, I know a woman that's a UFC fighter that can beat up a guy, blah, blah, blah. You can say all these things. But I'm talking the general man and the general woman. If there's 10 men with knives, who do you want to go ahead and fight that battle, or who is expected to fight that battle? And it's so interesting to me how the closer we are to real life shit, the closer we are to our natural gender roles. Naturally, women are more emotional. You'll hear this even from them. I have a friend that I say this to, and I say, you'll hear women say, I had my period, I was crazy. Like, you'll hear themselves say that. They're admitting that they're emotional. And that same friend tells me that his wife loves when she's like, you know what? I was really emotional, babe, but you helped centered me. Your stoicism, your leadership, you brought me down from that emotional high that I was in. You were the one that was able to calm me down and regulate me. And that's largely what was deemed appropriate or even just standard 10, 15 years ago. And now if I'm saying these things and it'll get clipped up and it'll be posted on TikTok, and you'll have a large contingent of people that will say I'm crazy, I'm misogynistic, I'm not a real man, or I'm insecure. They'll say these things when it's like, on the contrary, I'm incredibly secure. I don't care what anybody truly has to say about me, but I also am a realist. I realize real life things. And you can believe what you want. That's fine. We live in America. But what you believe in is changes every other day. It changes whatever CNN, MSNBC says. What I believe in is what was instilled in me as a child from the Bible, from my parents, from other male role models that I respected and followed. So I don't know. I hate the toxic masculinity conversation. I hate it. I've asked people, I say, can you explain to me what toxic masculinity is? It's a guy who cares about his fitness and his muscles and wants to be in shape. It's bullshit. It's garbage.
And then you ask these women, what do you want in a guy? And they're like, he's got to be in shape. I like that he's into fitness.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you just said that you don't like the whole bro gym culture, that
Yeah.
that's toxic masculinity. So again, it goes back to my theory of the two factions of women that exist. And I believe in the coming months, look what's happened in the last 2 weeks, right? Just for the, sense of context, this is relatively soon after the 2024 election. And look what we're seeing. We're seeing people wearing their MAGA hats in the middle of Midtown Manhattan, right? Like, this is crazy, but
Yep.
this is where we're at because the majority were silenced for so long that now we're like, dude, we won. We're the majority. The boys are back in town. Sit down, shut up, and let us run this shit. And the
Yeah.
real women are like, all right, cool. Whew, I can go do Pilates and like raise my kids and make, some sofrito and chill and lay in the sun and oh, thank God the guy has got this handled. And it doesn't mean that you're just like this weak woman without an opinion. It means that you're very happy to give your opinion when asked. And you're also deferring and trusting yourself that you chose a capable man
Yep.
to lead you and your family. I certainly fell into this trap in my first marriage, where again, conditioning of society is trying to tell you, you're not shit if you're not making this much money, right? You're a loser if you're not doing this in your career as a woman. So you fall into that path, and then the other things that matter, you don't see how they can fit in. You're like, well, if I'm trying to become a VP in my company, how do I also raise two kids? Like, how does this happen? And if you're of the value of, well, I don't want Svetlana, the Russian chick, to come and raise my kids for me. I want to do this. But then I also have this career. So this is the big conundrum that was happening. It's been happening since, I'd say hardcore since the 90s. I think like when my generation graduated college and we went into the workplace, we were like foot to the pedal, let's go make money. And then we hit like 27, 30 and we're like, this kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And some of us, like me, continued on that path. I only realized it sucked later. While others were like, yeah, I'm going to work until I'm 32. I'm going to meet some dude at happy hour. We're going to be modest, live great. I'm going to raise kids. I'll freelance from home. And I had a lot of friends that did that. They went on to live very happy lives, grown kids, great kids, because the parents were very hands on, right?
Mhm.
So I think where we're going to see, this going in the coming months, I feel like when Trump gets in there, God willing, he gets in and all is safe and well, and he starts to implement the policies and the massive radical change of government that's going to come, I think it's going to embolden people who voted for him to be much more bold in how they show up online. This
Yeah.
cancel culture business is done. The shit is over.
Yeah.
So there's this girl on TikTok. I don't know if you know of her. She's Lady in the Bathroom. Have you ever seen this chick? She's got like, it's insane what happened to her. Basically, she's this woman who is from Louisiana and she's a nurse. And she comes out in her bathroom lip syncing hip hop, like rap, old school, all kinds of it. She's great. Lady in the Bathroom. So what ends up happening with Lady in the Bathroom is that she does her little dances and her hip hop and all this, and it's hysterical, and her editing is top notch, best I've seen. And she reposts other content. So through her reposting of other content, these people online started to see that she was reposting content that was very pro RFK, pro Tulsi, pro Trump, these concepts about freedom and autonomy of sovereignty of your spirit, sovereignty of your mind, right? Not believing the mass media, all the things that are MAGA, right? So these others online went after her and they started blowing her up saying, you're MAGA, we should cancel you, and da da da. And it caused such a stir online that she clapped back with even more lip syncing. Never said anything to any of them, but she picked songs that were saying the word. And then the MAGA people who didn't know who the hell this girl was saw what the big uproar was online, started following her. She ended up with 2 million followers. So she had a little under a million, I'm sorry, a little under 2 million when this whole thing started. She started a backup channel that got a half a million followers. And then she got to 2 million on her main account. Cancel culture is over. You're only going to embolden the right to stand up for their own and follow their own and buy from their businesses. Like if you are a business owner and you're coming online and you're saying, I'm not selling to MAGA people and whatever, your business will be put out of business within a month.
You said a lot there that I once again 100% agree with. My background is in early childhood education.
Oh, okay.
That is 90% females. The amount of women that I've worked with that has said to me, why was I tricked into working when I could have been at home raising my children? And people will say that I'm making this up. Go ask them. Go outside. Stop just talking to the only 5 people you know on Facebook that agree with every single thing you say. I think that that's the biggest reason why the blue side lost this past election. I think the biggest reason why they lost is because they refuse to listen to differences. They refuse to listen to people having genuine concern. For example, the public education system. They're teaching these kids about LGBTQ, etc. I'm sorry, children do not need to learn that. I'm sorry. That might be controversial. You might say I'm a homophobic. You might say I'm this.
And the thing is, I'm all good with kids asking questions at a certain age, or they'll see something on TV and they'll say, or they'll hear an expression that a family member makes, like Tio dice, ese muchacho es un pato. What does that mean? Right? What does that, oh, that's gay. What does that mean? A little 5-year-old, what does that mean, gay? And then the kid asks, okay, you sit them down and you talk to them in a way that is appropriate for their age. But
Yep.
notice, that's the parents doing that. That's
Yep.
not the educators doing that.
100%.
And I want your opinion on this because that's your expertise. Do you feel like the women who are teachers and that they are pushing this agenda are truly women who missed their shot at having their own kids? And since that nurturing quality is part of women, they put it in that place. They put it in that, okay, let me educate the children. I haven't had my own kids, but I'm going to put my beliefs on your kids. I feel like there's something to that. It's very disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally have seen a decline over the last 30, 40 years of the way teachers present in the classroom, the way
Yeah.
they dress, the way they speak, the way their just energy is. They don't command respect.
Nope.
They are pushing agenda. It's just this indoctrination that's going on. And I feel like that was not addressed positively by the left. They perpetrate it more and more and
Yep.
then make you wrong for not wanting that. And I
Yep.
feel like more and more people were going to different outlets for information, and they underestimated how intelligent and resourceful the right and the independents were and are. I
Yep.
think they underestimated that. So
Yeah.
while they were sitting there using ABC, MSNBC, all the same that they own, they weren't, or they were maybe too arrogant or blind to the numbers falling of mainstream media while the alternative media was rising. More eyes were going on a podcast than a whole week of CNN combined. And so
100%.
people are getting that information. So I think that they were in denial. I think they thought that they can strong arm. I also thought they were going to cheat again. I definitely thought that. They were so cocky that they could just appoint this person, continue with the same rhetoric, double down on it. I mean, that whole thing about her, of Kamala being at a rally and this guy yells out, Christ is King, totally, rattled her. And she said, I think you're at the wrong rally. You need to go to the smaller one up the street. That was a nail in her coffin.
Yeah.
But they can't help themselves, right? Because I go deep down the rabbit holes of, the whole satanic aspect of all of this and the spiritual
Me
war
too.
of all of this, deep in that. And, evil can't help but show itself. It's too arrogant.
Yeah. And the truth of the matter is that life is binary. There is good and evil. Going back to the main point that I wanted to say is that the public education system, I think, is a joke now. I genuinely think it's a joke. Yes, that's my background, but I also have removed myself from mainstream education and trying to learn things that are real. For example, how inflation works, how money works. These are things that are not taught. And the YouTube algorithms will go ahead and they'll push idiots like Mr. Beast and Logan Paul, and you get those guys and you get sugary drinks and WWF. Cool. But what about the people that are teaching you real life stuff? You realize they get silenced, which, like you said, I don't think will happen for too much longer because I think life is a pendulum. And I think, unfortunately, they went way too far out. They went way too crazy with certain ideas. I genuinely think most people don't care about gays, trans, etc. Like everything in life, it's always a small vocal minority. They'll go ahead and they'll broadcast a group of 12, 15 people that are walking down. For example, I just recently saw it, Columbus, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And
Antifa
yeah,
in different costumes.
right. So they'll promote them and say, "Look, this is how all people who love Trump are." That's complete bullshit. I like to think there's more that bridges you than what separates you. I think all of us want happy and healthy lives. If we have children, we want them to be successful. We want them to be happy, live a good life, a better life than what we had. So I think that we all can agree on that. How we teach our kids is completely different and sometimes a little crazy. I was watching one video where the mom was talking to her I think a 5-year-old, and she's like, Donald Trump has won. Kamala is not going to be our president, and you can see that the 5-year-old and 6-year-old really doesn't give a shit. But the mom is all trying to promote to this child why the child should be devastated. The child is going to feed off of that. Children are innocent.
Absolutely.
And like I said, that's my background. Interestingly enough, one of the biggest reasons why I'm not in the public education system is because I was very vocal about these things. I was very vocal about what we're teaching our kids and how they're being propagated and the nonsense that they're learning that I didn't learn. Again, I'm not saying that if you're gay or you're trans that you don't have a purpose in life. It's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But what I am saying and what I will maintain saying is that my children or the children don't need to learn about that. I didn't learn about it until I was age appropriate. I have no problems with it. What you do is what they do rather, is they take, again, a very small vocal minority of people that have hate towards them, genuine hate. I'm not trying to discredit that. They take the people that have genuine hate for them, and then they paint everyone with a brush saying, everyone must hate us.
Yeah, for sure. Look, if you want to be a dude doing makeup tutorials, have at it, bro. I'll learn tips from you. I'm good. It's all good.
Yeah.
I remember being in a club in New York in 1993, and there was a trans bathroom attendant, with the makeup and the lips, the mints and the hand wipes. And she turned me on to MAC Spice lip liner. Never forget it. Got the best makeup tip from a trans person handing me a napkin in the bathroom in New York in the early 90s. Yeah, and that was in the bathroom. So this whole thing is just so blown out of proportion for the purposes of politics. Right. So there were trans all the time. There were clubs in New York where that stuff went down, in Miami too. I lived in Miami, and gay pride was a thing. Amazing, super fun. I would walk from my apartment to the Ocean Drive, and you'd hang out on Ocean Drive all day, and you'd dance, and it was great. The music was amazing. And nothing. It was nothing political. It was just their day. It's Pride Day. You're going to go down the beach. You're going to get the big drinks and the thing. You're going to walk around my little rainbow bikini with my friends, dancing around. All good fun. Somewhere it shifted. First of all, they took the whole lesbian, gay thing and they added this whole other alphabet soup to it. And I feel badly for the lesbian and homosexual men, gay men, who just want a normal life. They just want to be a family and have a kid and be normal and have they love the person of the same sex, but their values are listen, we want to protect our kids. We want to live a normal life. We want to go to work or whatever. And I feel like they have been lumped into this entire agenda, which is very satanic, rooted in Marxism. It's a whole thing. When you go down that rabbit hole, oh my God. Because it begs the question, why? Why are they doing this? Well, it seems like they're predatory. It's very predatory energy. And I just am one of those people that I just ask questions and I start looking for stuff because I just want to find truth, and I pray on it, and I feel like God just guides me to the right video, the right people, the right teachers, the right books. And information is there for those brave enough to look into it. You made that point earlier that a lot of people don't want to look at this stuff because it is more cushy and comfy to believe the lie. So this is why, a lot of the people on the left will say, well, what's your source? What's your citation? And you're like, oh, do you want to see a documentary where they go into the whole thing about pedophilia and how the media and the whole thing and all that? I'll send it to you. And you send them this thing and it's like, no, I don't believe that. And I'm like, well, it was from a guy who was an ex-CIA guy, and he gave his testimony about all of this. And the documentary was made by a guy who was a Hollywood stuntman, and he saw it all. And it really messed him up. And he turned to alcohol, and it messed him up. And then he got a healer. And then he started to talk about this stuff, and he learned from other people, like, oh yeah, this is no lie. There's a lot of satanic stuff going on in Hollywood, right? And they're like, no, we can't see this. This is a conspiracy theory, right? And then you hit him with, well, who invented the term conspiracy theory? And they'll be looking at you like, glaze. They give you that glaze. I don't know. And you're like, well, it was created by the CIA to discredit anyone who was asking questions about the Kennedy assassination. So you using that term conspiracy theorist isn't offensive. You're trying to offend people by saying that.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was 2020 for like 6 months, but we're all like awake now, and everything we looked into in 2020 has come to pass. So where are you going with this? And the thing is, either people will come to the truth the easy way on their own volition, or they will be smacked in the face with it like an anvil falling from the sky. Either way, truth is coming out no matter what. There's a segment of the population who won't even flinch, right? If somebody came out to you tomorrow with the entire Epstein list, finally, and you saw the names on it, would you be like fetal position in your bed crying, or would you be like, oh yeah, I had a feeling yeah, okay, and then let's go order food?
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's two factions going on at once. These people will lose their minds to know that, their beloved celebrities were posing in drag in movies because it was a ritual from their owners and handlers in the studios. So this is how they own you. Athletes too, all of it, right? So when you see that to them now, they think you're crazy. When it comes out finally, they're not going to know how to handle it.
Well, that's the biggest way to discredit anybody with a differing opinion. It's to either say you're a conspiracy theorist or you're crazy. Those are the two biggest things that people will say to discredit you, because once you say, oh, Nathanael, you're crazy, all of a sudden now you have no leg to stand on. I genuinely believe that there's a large contingent of the population that don't know how to think for themselves. CNN and MSNBC can go ahead and say right now, drinking water is bad for you. And there will be a large contingent of the population that will go ahead and say, I should not be drinking water. The news told me. Well, the news said, and to me it's like, well, the news lies. Like, let's call it what it is, people. And for the people that don't, or that want to discredit that, I say to them, you're a regular human being, correct? Well, yeah. That news anchor is a regular human being, correct? Well, yeah. And who's their boss? Regular human being, right? Who's their boss? Regular human being. Now, the reason why, to circle it all back, you as a regular human being, have you ever lied to someone to get them to believe what you want? Well, I suppose. We all could agree that we've all told a white lie on a small thing. So you don't think that somebody is willing to go ahead and lie and jump through hoops for something that is outstanding in life, that you need, that means something? It's just, like I said, I genuinely think that there's a large contingent of the population that don't know how to think for themselves. And I say all this not as a hard right, hard left. In this past election, I was right down the middle. And I said, let me hear what both candidates have to say. Let me hear what I'm being told. And what I was being told on one side was, let me basement cast this person and then push her out in the media as this strong titan in the industry, which nobody agreed with. Nobody. Even liberals didn't even like her. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden, I was supposed to believe that she was this strong candidate. She was this powerful force of a woman. And the thing that really got to me this past election was, I fell into the lies in 2015 When I was told that he was this awful tyrant, I believed it. I didn't vote for him or Hillary, to be honest, but I looked at that and I believed it because I believed it. I was young. I was naive. I was 20, 22 at the time. So
Okay.
I was a baby. I was listening to all the news. I was listening to everybody tell me everything. And then I started to live my life after the fact. And I realized how, okay, so he said some things that I don't necessarily agree with. He's a sovereign individual, as am I. And then I would listen to some of the arguments people would say. They would say things like, well, would you trust him with a sister of yours or your daughter or whatever the case may be? And I go, I'm not asking for that. I'm asking about what he's doing to help our country. And he was America first. America needs to be this strong country and go back to the way we were. America needs to go into that mentality of we bark and everybody cowers. And it wasn't until I learned after the fact that he was the only president in U.S. history that did not start an overseas war that made me realize that he wasn't Hitler. He wasn't this tyrannical person that they tried to make it out to be. And then COVID happened. Now, I had a crazy... I see now it's embedded in me that this is what people told me. I had a slightly different approach to COVID. I was young at the time. I was 26. I was in the prime of my life. I was physically active. And I remember thinking to myself, if this disease can genuinely kill me, then the world is over. It's over. So why am I going to live my life in fear? I would do the shopping for my family. Yeah, I would do the shopping for my family. I would go out. I would still work. I was doing all these things during COVID. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that there were a lot of places that still didn't really follow COVID guidelines. That they were like, you know what? We're going to do our thing. We're not going to follow the propaganda. We're going to go and do this.
Even where you lived in Massachusetts?
So to answer that, I've always been fortunate enough that I've always found a lot of individuals like-minded like myself.
That's fantastic.
Similar to you, I've always been the type of person that has wanted to seek truth. I was never the type of person that would just listen to what somebody told me and believed it as gospel, other than the Bible itself. That's the only thing that I've ever read that I said, okay, I'm believing this wholeheartedly. I would have teachers in high school that would tell me I had to learn the Pythagorean theorem, and I would say to them, why am I not learning about budgeting,
right?
Economics,
But
tax?
teacher, I want to learn about Jekyll Island and what happened there.
And I would have these teachers say to me, well, that's what the curriculum tells me. That's what we have to do.
Teacher, who creates the curriculum? I heard about this guy Rockefeller. And is that why I have to raise my hand when I have to go pee?
Yeah.
This is what it is.
And that's and completely. And so it wasn't until I was like, I'm going to go ahead and break free from, and I love my mother. I do. I have great respect for her. She's my mother. She's the woman that God chose to raise me. She did a lot for me. She sacrificed a lot for me. I have nothing against her. Why I bring her up is because I had to essentially break free from the learnings that she taught me. Because at that 22-year-old stage that I was talking about, I fell into that mindset of, I'm depressed. There's nothing that can work. I fell into, I'm a victim. Everybody's out to get me. Everybody's a racist, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't until I really took a step back, found who I was as a person, and I thought to myself, I said, okay, another thing that will be controversial, but I'm just going to say it. I don't believe clinical depression is real. I believe feeling depressed is I believe feeling depressed is real. I believe you can lose a mother, lose a loved one, be broken up with, lose a dog, and that can make you depressed. 100% agree with that. No, you'll have no issues with me. Where I disagree with is it's this disease that I catch from the sky and nothing can cure me.
Totally agree with that. I agree. I believe Depression is an emotion,
Yep.
not a state of being. You
100%.
choose your state of being. A person can choose their state of being. And then when people say, oh, but then there's, brain chemistry stuff and they show this and research has showed, got it, which then makes me go to the leap of all the more reason to have RFK Jr. looking into the air, the water, and the food supply, because the chemicals in all of that is dimming, or better said, calcifying the pineal gland, which is this pine cone shaped gland in the center of our brain that is to connect us to the higher consciousness, to the God consciousness, to help us get deep into our intuition, have discernment, and be different from AI. It's the true intelligence of mankind is the pineal gland. And so when we eat crappy food, processed crap, high fructose corn syrup and everything, etc., then that thing gets calcified. And so then it makes it more difficult to cope with losses in life and things that happen, stressors in life, that then people in the pharmaceutical industry can so conveniently say, oh, that's depression. Take this SSRI, and it only messes you up more, but it masks you from, or it hides the feeling of things. So I coach a lot of people who went through therapy for depression, and they're coming out of the haze and they're trying to get off of SSRIs. And it is a process. It's incredible and fascinating to see, and how much courage it takes to wean yourself off of these drugs after being on them for years and years. And then once people start to do that, how they awaken to the simplest things and the gratitude they start to feel for the simplest things. I'm talking like you're at a red light and you notice 3 butterflies flying around your car, and that these people who are getting off of these medications are saying to me, Lisa, 6 months ago, I wouldn't even have noticed the butterflies flying around my car. I would have been in my own world of haze and negativity, and I wouldn't have even have seen how blue the sky was, how the air felt today. Like, it just changes. And I think we're going to start moving into this awakening phase where people are going to start just feeling better in their bodies, and they're not going to really understand why. But then they're going to say, well, ever since Trump got elected and RFK started talking about fluoride in the water, I don't know what they did in our city. Let me look it up. Google your city. Your water supply was changed. Oh, maybe that's why I started feeling better. They need to connect the dots on their own, and everyone will. Same like you did when you were 22 and you started feeling a certain way, and you were like, wait a second, I don't like feeling like this. Maybe everything my mom is saying to me isn't right. Let me look it up myself. So bringing it back to you, because I'm curious, what did you do to break that tethering to your mom? And granted, keeping the good, keeping the love, keeping all the things that worked, obviously, but stepping away from those more manufactured, indoctrinating kind of messages.
Sure. And thank you for asking, because that's one thing that nobody has ever really asked me, because they've always just discredited it. The first thing I did was I took control of my own life. And what I mean by that is everything was my fault, the good and the bad. I stopped blaming other people. I stopped acting like I was the victim. And instead, I made myself the enforcer, the apex predator, the one that was going to go for it. Instead of everybody coming to me, I'm going to go to them. So I took control of my own life. I started working out. I started getting into fitness. I started being around people who made me feel good about myself, as opposed to people that just enabled my feelings and my thought process, because I really did fall into the whole, oh, well, your feelings and there's nothing you can do. And I got to a point where I said, all right, fuck my feelings. If I have to work, if I have to train, if I have to handle family business, I'm not saying that you can't be sad. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I'll listen to full-grown men say things like, I was sad and I needed a mental health day, so I didn't get up. I didn't work today. I didn't go to the gym. all the more reason for you to do those things if you're really feeling sad. And I will admit, I know that that is true, that there are some days where I wake up and I feel off. I have no exact reason as to why I feel off. It's just I feel off. But I still get up. I still go to the gym. I still eat right. And by the end of the day, I'm like, shit, I accomplished so much and I feel so much better than how I did at the beginning of the day. Wow, it's amazing when you don't listen to just people telling you to sit around watching Netflix and instead get up and go do something. You actually end up feeling better. It's amazing to me how there's people that don't know about their own personal health, about those things that you're talking about, the fluoride, etc. But they know all about Love Island. They know all about the football teams. They know, you know what I mean? They know all about irrelevant things, but they don't want to but they don't want to learn about the true things that truly matter about your own health and your own life and how you can take control. So that was the first thing. I took control of my life. I made everything my responsibility, everything my fault, good and bad. If I drive a nice car, it's my fault because I work hard and I earn that. If it gets repoed, it's my fault because I didn't work hard enough and I let it happen. So everything is my fault. Simple response. I also, like I said, started eating better. Don't get me wrong. I love chocolate chip cookies. I'm a sucker for a good baked chocolate chip cookie that's undercooked, not good for you, sugar, etc. But it's balance. Instead of that being the sole consumption of my diet, it was fruits, rice, chicken, vegetables, things that made me feel good because I didn't feel sluggish, I didn't feel weak. And admittedly, I cut off a lot of ties from people that had that victim mentality. There were a lot of people that I grew up with that everyone is racist, all cops are racist. Okay, in my life, I have maybe had 2 people be openly racist to me, and it got to a point where I really sat down and I said, does this person have any impact on my life? Are they my friend? Are they someone I genuinely care about? No, no, no. So piss off. If somebody is that brutally ignorant and will walk up to me and say, you're not white, so I don't like you. You're right. Have a good day. Goodbye. Like, piss off. I don't care. I feel like media will sit here and go, no, you should let that ruin your day. You should let it impact you so badly to the point where now you can't get up, you can't work, you can't train, you can't do this. And to me, I'm like, what? Why?
Don't you feel like during this part of your journey with the whole racism thing that what was being portrayed on the media was completely different than what was happening in real life?
100%.
Like you just raised such a perfect point. I'm 53 years old. I'm a Latin mutt. There's nothing else in me. I'm Puerto Rican, Chilean, and Spanish. That's it. And all my life, people, oh, you're Italian girl from New York. You're Greek, whatever. Even then, around 9/11, everybody thought I was Middle Eastern, Lebanese, whatever. I didn't care. I wasn't offended. I was like, oh, wow, you think I'm a Lebanese woman? That's amazing. Like, those women are gorgeous. Thanks for the compliment. Like, I was never offended. I didn't care.
Yeah.
But then I would correct them out of their own, pride of my heritage, etc. And I would say, no, I'm a Latin mutt and this and that. And the conversation would happen. It would be done. And it still is. If you listen to what they would say on the news, though, they would talk about things that didn't even exist and weren't measurable, meaning you can go into a store and there can be microaggressions against you. I'm like, what the hell is that? Honey, I go into a store and I say, hi, can I see these shoes in a size 7 and a 7.5? And the kind person goes and gets them because that's their job. And I have the money to pay for it. Never in my life did anybody ever say, oh, your skin's a little too tan for me, honey. I can't wait on you. Never in my life ever did that happen. But if you think of the media and you hear what they say, they will create this fear and this perception that makes you paranoid.
Yeah.
And I never bought into any of that, ever.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you say that. I follow this one guy on TikTok who's black and gay, who loves Trump. And he was going to all the MAGA rallies. And he was like, it's really interesting because 8 years ago, they were telling me that I was going to be murdered on the spot because I'm black and gay at one of these rallies. And here I am, and nobody cares. And that, I think that boils down to what I was trying to say. Genuinely, deep down inside, I really don't think the vast majority of people care. It's that small vocal minority who does make a big deal, and then now everybody is. And that to me is disingenuous to just paint a broad brush and to say every single person is a racist or every single person. I've heard from people, everyone who likes Trump is a racist, and I go, there's a lot of people of color who like Trump, and I've heard from people who say, well, that's not true because a lot of blacks and Hispanics tend to vote Dem. That Latino vote was really big for Trump this past this past.
Oh, and I got into a discussion about that with a fellow Latina, and he said, Latinos are all about God and babies and fertility and family and have lots of kids and be with a big Thanksgiving table. Like, this is what we're about. And that other side is not about that. So I don't know, hang out with that thought for a bit, right? Because what they're selling isn't what we're about. And then they wonder why Latinos were turning their backs on them, despite that comment that comedian made about Puerto Rico being a floating island of garbage, which was my TikTok video explaining that. And facts are the facts. Like, they have a problem with their landfills. I made a video about this. It took off. And that's, I think, how you found me.
It
But
is. It is.
yeah, so the thing is, facts are facts. They don't care about your feelings. And you could try to conjure up this entire thing about Trump being a racist and all MAGAs are racist. But in actuality, it is the party who is so obsessed with race, constantly making everything about race, putting DEI in things, in companies. So you're not working out of a meritocracy where the best person for the job gets it. So if I'm a Puerto Rican girl and I'm going for a job with Grant Cardone as his director of marketing, it was sitting with Grant and showing him I can take you to another level in your marketing. And then other people doing the same. And never once did Grant say, oh, let's give it to the Puerto Rican girl because I want to look good. Never. It was, what can you do to increase my revenue? Explain yourself. And you did. And then you got the job. And that's what we're going to start moving back towards, because people need to feel that they can compete fairly with others and that they are good at what they do. And that's why they got the job, not because of the color of their skin or some quota that has to be filled. But that, no, this was the best person for the job. I do not care what color they are. I don't care. They were most capable, and the meritocracy thing is going to come in strong, really strong, which I'm excited for.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And a lot of these issues, I truly believed are Trojan horsed. And what I mean by that is they're disguised into a positive thing. I think we all could agree. Yeah, it'd be great to have multiple races in a job, etc. Like, we say these things because it's true, right? Like, deep down inside, intrinsically, it'd be like, oh yeah, it'd be great to have an Indian, an Asian, a Hispanic, a black, a white, and everyone commingle and we all love each other. It'd be great. But then what happens is then, like I said, it goes into this, oh, well, they don't like you because of this and they don't like you because of that. And I've said this one time, and I've had people disagree with me on this. I've said, if you put a Hispanic billionaire in a room, a white billionaire in a room, a Asian billionaire in a room, do you think any of them are talking about race? No.
Now they're talking about money and who
They,
can make the most of it and how fast.
yes,
Period.
yes.
And that's Trump. Trump's like, bro, I don't care what color you are. I want you all to thrive. Because when we all thrive, we become the powerhouse of the world.
Mm.
So he's not sitting here saying, like, oh, I only want this segment of the population. You have to be white male to thrive. First of all, his son has been dating a Puerto Rican girl, half Puerto Rican girl, for years. Kimberly Gulfroil or whatever her last name is. That chick is Latina. She's always talking about it. So whatever. Then Trump dated before Melania, a black model from I think a year or two. So like this is just so like you say Trojan horsey, like just stirring the pot of shit just to be relevant and to keep people down because the agenda. So people are so into this divide and conquer and fighting online that what they're failing to see is this bigger agenda hurting the sheep, us, towards what I think looks like a technocratic totalitarianistic state where it's a global governance, global entities, non-elected, that override our constitution. They are trying to do this. I don't think it's going to work, but they're trying at every turn. And that is this ultimate control where we're now with a credit system where our monetary system is attached to biometrics. So every single thing we do and everything we do online then gets judged by some nebulous genie in the clouds that says, oh no, you can't have meat this month because you posted a fucking MAGA thing 5 years ago. And this is where people say, you're crazy. That's not where we're heading. And it's like, all right, well, did you ever think that you'd be walking around with a mask on your face because your government told you to? No, but here we are. So this is what we really need to look at is the people above the government, like follow that money. And there's this chick, her name is Whitney Webb. I don't know if you know of her, but she comes out a lot talking about crypto and the financial system and sovereign money, and also goes deep. She wrote this, 2,000 page volume 1, volume 2 book on all Epstein and the connections to that. And it really all boils down to two entities funding both sides, right? They're all BlackRock. It's all of that, up, and it goes beyond them too. The people in the shadows that you don't even see, right? And they're looking at what George Soros did to our judiciary, buying off these judges state by state, making it so that elections in certain cabinet places can be turned and messed up and whatever so that they can infiltrate from within. I mean, this is when Trump says, the enemy is within because of all of this corruption that they then now want to dismantle. And what's interesting is life coaching is very much the micro of what we see on the macro. So the micro is your own life, your own troubles, your own obstacles that you're overcoming, the growth that you're having because of it. And then in the macro, you're seeing our country and the world going through these same changes and these same obstacles and control versus freedom and all of this. And so the more you work on yourself in the micro, the more readied and prepared you are to see that truth, right? When you're going through a breakup or a divorce and you go deep into your healing and you're going back to childhood and you're looking at shit that went down when you were 4 years old and how that impacted how you showed up in your marriage. And now you're feeling like shit because you're like, damn, I wish I knew this 10 years ago. My marriage would have been different, right? This is a big smack in your face of reality and of growth. Now, when you look at it from the macro lens and you see the corruption and the lies and the being cheated on and all this in government, you are more ready to go down those rabbit holes and seek truth because you did it within yourself. So that I think is what we're going to see more of too. Like I'm pretty hopeful. Like I feel like we saw so many people wake up so much in the last 4 years that I just feel like now that the things are going to change very rapidly. I feel like these people are going to start asking more questions and they're going to reach their own awarenesses in their own time and in a way that resonates with them. Us yelling at them and calling them sheep and being like, you're a dumbass and this and that, you're educated, but you don't know common sense, all of these fighting back and forth. Um, yeah, it's part of it. It does, move the needle a bit, but there's something very powerful about people discovering it on their own.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
had this woman tell me for years, and I wasn't going to unfriend her. I wasn't going to be mean, none of that. And she was, very blue, and she would see me with my Trump hat. She'd see me with all my stuff. And she would be like, Lisa, I know you for so long. Like, we were in grammar school together, and like, we have the same values. We came from the same upbringing. Like, I don't get it. And I said, it's going to hit you at the right time. Just have trust. Like, you want to get it, right? You want to know what's happening in our world, and you want to know things. And I said, just lay off the media, the mainstream media.
Right.
And I'm going to send you some podcasts or some things that I'm listening to. And at least she was open to it because she trusted me from childhood. Interestingly, though, it wasn't until she went to TJ Maxx to get a certain hair product that she would find there for years and years, and they didn't have it anymore. And she went to the manager and she said, I've been getting this product. I even brought the bottle to show you. Are you guys going to get this ever again? I've been coming here for 2 months and I can't find it at any TJ Maxx. And the guy says, oh, we don't carry that anymore because of the what's it called? The pipeline that, oh my God, what is the word? When the supply chain.
Yeah.
Okay, so he mentioned that word to her. He said, well, there's supply chain issues and it's like all over the country and it's affecting products and how we're getting them.
Oh
So
yeah, it was big on the East Coast a couple months ago.
big, big.
Yeah.
So anyhow, she types me a DM and she says, oh my God, you're right about everything. What happened? She goes, I went to TJ Maxx. I tried to get my hair product and I got into a 45-minute discussion with the manager about supply chain and COVID and what happens. And this kid was so intelligent and he totally told me what to look up online. And I did it. And then from there, I went to this other thing and this other thing. And you know how it happens, right? You start digging, you start looking. It's almost like, you're a couple and you try to check their phone.
Yeah.
And when you want to find shit, you're going to find shit.
Yeah.
So that's what happened to this woman. And she said, Lisa, I totally awakened. I completely, and it was my hair product. So, point is, in the months to come, the level of change and the level of disruption that's going to happen is going to force these people to start going down these rabbit holes. And they're going to hear terminology. It already started with tariffs. Do you remember learning about tariffs in school? I
Yeah.
do. These people are like, you don't even know what a tariff is. I'm like, a tariff is a tax on goods. This is basic knowledge. I went to school in the 80s. They taught us this shit.
Yeah.
Unlike your education system that from 2000 on just went to shit, right? We learned about these things. We also
Yeah.
learned about Marxism, totalitarianism, authoritarianism, all the countries that fell under each. We learned about all these things. Like, dude, I went to high school during when like Rocky and Rambo were like the shit. Like, you couldn't watch a movie without like American flag stuff everywhere. Like, it just was very go America kind of timing. And I
Yeah.
grew up in that. So we learned certain things based on that time. So when these kids, children, come at me talking about communism as it's like a good thing, I'm like, dude, like, did you learn about Mao China in the 60s and struggle sessions? Like, all your little Zoom calls that these suburban women were doing with the Zoom calls for Kamala, and they'd have their little videos. That's a struggle session. That was just digital struggle session. Same shit.
Mm.
And struggle session is basically putting a bunch of people together and complaining about being a victim, complaining about what's so terrible about them, what's so terrible about the world, the neighbors, the community, what's awful. Everything's focused on the awful, the
Yeah.
struggle. Awful. Awful.
No. No, these kids are too busy learning about bullshit and garbage. They're too and feelings and why you shouldn't work if you are upset that day, or why you shouldn't, go to the gym, and why you should. It's mean if somebody says that you're a little overweight and they're a bully and body shame. They're learning about absolute mindless things.
Safe spaces too. The safe space. There's no
Yeah.
sense of self advocacy anymore. Everything
No.
is tattling.
Yep.
So if somebody insults you, you don't know how to insult them back. You're not thinking quick on your feet. You're going to
Yeah.
tattle because you tattled to your teacher. So now you're going to tattle to your boss. It's
Yeah.
and then you tattle to your government. This is the path. Scary.
My theory as to why they're doing all this is because they want humans to be as docile as possible. They want them to be as weak as possible. And I refuse. I refuse to be weak. It doesn't matter what mood I'm in. You will not be able to tell. I could be doing this exact same podcast in a good mood. I could be doing it in a bad mood. You would not know the difference. I'm in a great mood just because we talked about it off camera and how much I enjoy seeing your content and all that stuff. But the point that I'm making is that I think that the mental weakness of people nowadays is so fragile. I have spoken to, like I've said, grown men that are older than me that will say things like, I'm getting triggered. Please don't say that. It offends me. It bothers me. Whereas, like, to me personally, I say, where is the mental resiliency? Where is the, I don't give a shit what you're saying? And I want to say something real quick because this is just something I find interesting in today's culture and society, etc. Keyboard warriors. You know how you talked about how, like, there's different groups of women that are looking for relationships? I find that there's different groups of men as well. I think you alluded to it briefly when you said that there's men that are going overseas and trying to find. I've heard that too. Green card weddings. You know, I've heard
Yeah,
of these things.
passport bro. That's what
Yeah,
they call themselves.
yes. And passport bros. That's what it is. Yes, yes. And the reason why I bring that up is because I find that there is a group of men, a divide of men. I find that there's men that will be weak-minded, listen to everything their wives say. Their wife will be so emotional, screaming, etc. And the men will just be like, okay, baby, I'll let you do whatever you want. You can go on your girls' trip. You can go do this. You can go to Vegas and talk with guy friends, and it's not gonna bother me. It's okay. And then there's people like myself who will sit there and say, okay, first things first, you don't need a girls' trip to Miami to feel good about yourself. If you want to go with close friends on the weekend, go do that. You don't need to go ahead and go to club club hopping to feel good about yourself. You're gonna feel empty. You're gonna feel shallow if you do that. That's first and foremost. I've literally have been told by people that is a misogynistic view, and to me, I say I don't understand how that's misogynistic. Misogynism means that you hate women.
Right.
I am not saying I hate women whatsoever. I'm saying is that I understand that the woman I'm with is mentally struggling. So how can I, in a healthy, appropriate way, handle that? And saying, yeah, you can go talk to 40 guys and potentially hook up with one of them, that I'm going to feel good about that. That's going to make me feel good. I was called misogynistic one time for saying this, that I wouldn't let the girl I'm with go to a club with 4 of her friends. And one time, one girl was like, really? Well, would you be able to go out to the club with 4 of your guy friends? And I said, it depends. And allow me to explain. And they say, see, that is misogynistic. I said, no, allow me to explain, please, for 1 second. Get out of your feelings. If 4 girls go to a club, they turn up to a club, they're all dressing nice. Are a bunch of guys going to go flock at them? She's like, well, yeah. And I said, and it doesn't matter if the girls are pretty or ugly. Guys are going to be attracted to that. If the girls are open, winking, giving off that flirtatious vibe, a large contingent of men are going to go towards that way. If I turn up to the club with 4 guys and we're all enjoying ourselves, smoking a couple cigars, laughing, talking, enjoying the vibe, there's not going to be a large contingent of women, maybe. Again, exceptions don't disprove the truth. There's not going to be a large contingent of women that are going to approach us and try to get with us. We have to make that step.
Right.
So that's why I don't believe that is a healthy environment to get over someone or a problem.
Well, it's a form of escapism.
Right. And I said, well, tell me what you get, what, fulfillment you get from going to a club. Tell me. Well, the music. Okay, well, you can listen to that music on the radio. Okay, next. Like on your Apple Music, Spotify. Next. Tell me why else. Well, the drinking. Can't you and your girls go and have a wine night and have fun with each other? Do you really need to go ahead and put yourself in that environment? Well, okay. Well, it's the whole getting out.
Really, what the truth is, and I just call them out on it, and they can call me a pick me. I can give a fuck. I've been chosen. Hello, so fuck off. What I end up saying to these women is point blank this, because I've been there. I'm not saying this because I'm just preaching from the top. I'm saying this because I lost a marriage over this shit.
Yep.
This is about attention, validation, feeling approval from the external, feeling approval from the looks that the guys give you in the club, the strangers, the approval. And so when you do the inner work and you get to the root of why you seek that approval, why do you seek that escape from your own bullshit, and you think that being in a club for 4 hours, having dudes buy you drinks and telling you how beautiful you are is going to fill you up. When you get to the root of what's behind that and you heal that, you're not going to want to go to clubs anymore. You're going to be like,
Absolutely
it's so
not.
loud in here, the energy. Oh, does it smell in here? I remember when I went through my healing journey in 2015. I was very late to the game. I was 44 years old at the time. I was living in South Beach, Miami, one of the meccas of partying, and
Yep.
I lived there. So I was on boats and all the whole life, all the life, right?
Yep.
And it was a blast and it was wonderful, but it was a distraction from the growth that I needed to really come to. And I credit Miami for really being the city that I stepped into my adult womanhood. I went there as a girl, 39 years old, right? Still a girl in many ways. And through this healing journey, inspired by my divorce, became a true sovereign, solid woman, and then created a business because I was very public with my growth journey and people started to want to talk to me online. And I didn't know. I was doing marketing. I didn't know anything. I didn't even have a PayPal account. And I helped this guy. He saw my content about codependency and all the stuff I was talking about in my own healing and what I was doing. And he said, Lisa, I'm codependent too. I've been struggling in this for like 3 years. I want to talk to you. I want to know what you're reading and what you're doing. And I said, okay, let's do a call. So we figured out a call, did it. And at the end, he said, I got more talking with you for the last 90 minutes than 5 years of therapy. Like, can I pay you? And I'm like, well, what are you going to do? Send me a check in the mail? And he goes, no, like, let's open you a PayPal. Like, you need to be making money at this. And that was the little bud of a business. And so my own therapist said to me, have you ever considered going back to college to like full on be a therapist? And I looked into it and then I looked at what's involved and I felt like it wasn't really the path for me, but I did like motivation, coaching. I was around Grant Cardone at the time. I was like really feeling that empowerment vibe. And I looked into that and I said, this is what I want to be focused on. I don't necessarily want to sit in the weeds with people about their past. I think that's important information to help you get to your future. I want to be the one who they come to maybe after therapy, where they have some sense of why they are the way they are. But now that they know all of this, what do I do with all of this?
Mm-hmm.
And then I teach them, okay, you want to go over there to your great life of your creation? Then let's use what you learned about your past to make new agreements with yourself, set new boundaries, have some new standards. And that's what's going to help you to actually create the life that you want. So when you talk about the whole, I wasn't a victim, I decided not to have a victim mindset, I decided and chose to be 100% accountable for all outcomes in my life. You know how bold and empowering that is? That's like ultimate courage. Because all that's good, I did that. All that's shitty, ooh, I attracted that. What was I doing? What was my energy like? What was my mindset like that inspired these behaviors that led to this result? Ooh, I see it now, so I can change it, right? Can't change other people, but you can change you. And there's nothing more powerful than that, right?
Yep.
So, the work that I do with people, it is typically people who are looking to better themselves and get to that next level, specifically when it comes to dating and relationships. But when you work on yourself in one aspect of your life, the others also benefit. So it's a complete and total level up. when you do this type of work. So if anybody out there is listening to this and you and I are kicking it and talking about a bunch of different things all over with politics and whatever, but if you're thinking and you're on the fence of like, I really should go to therapy, but I don't know if therapy is the right thing and I don't know if life coaching, whatever, invest in yourself, check out all of it, see what resonates best for you based on what it is that you want to resolve. Do your research, see what really hits you in the right way. Because you might want to be in therapy for a little bit, get some information about that, get some clarity in that regard, and then shift into a life coaching thing, or sometimes it's groups where you could do retreats. They have wonderful ones all over the world. You can see the world and better yourself. There's a lot out there, and I feel like we are entering a time in our life of this planet where more and more people are interested in these types of conversations versus some bullshit propaganda on the mainstream news. People are falling away from that. They want to have higher level conversations. They want to expand their minds, open their consciousness. People are wanting to elevate. And as we saw in this election, one side tried to stick to the old ways of doing a campaign, and Trump had his 18-year-old son say, Dad, you need to go on podcasts, and here are the 12 ones to go on. And he had the foresight to say, yeah, you know what? 18 years old, that's a first-time voter. I'm going to go on podcasts. Dad, look at the numbers. Look at how much Rogan gets versus CBS News. CBS News is going to talk to you for 15 minutes, and they're going to come at you sideways. Rogan's going to sit with you for 2 hours, and you can talk about whatever. You can even talk about your family. You talk about everybody's going to see who you really are.
Yeah.
Right? And this was the difference. Mm-hmm. People are hungry for authenticity in their relationships, in their presidential candidates, in their businesses, in the people they collaborate with professionally. You wouldn't have had me on here if you thought I was a fake ass bitch. You would have been like, that chick is fake. I'm not. And I'm sure you see a lot of chicks on Instagram, whatever, on the socials that they're just posing, they're just fake. But you start seeing the people who are real, who are coming at it, from a perspective, not afraid to speak their mind, open to other opinions and whatever. That's more exciting. It's more exciting. That's what people want to hear now.
Yeah, I want to unpack a lot that you said there. I think that was genuinely what attracted me to having you as a guest, was just how candid you were. And you were, hey, this is me. This is my heart on my sleeve. Take it or leave it. You like it, you don't. I don't really give a shit. And again, just feeling that kindred spirit of, a fellow Latina, Latina, and she understood the context of the joke, didn't get overly offended, didn't act like it was the end of the world. I think that I resonated with that. I want to talk about your full accountability, about how that's part of your coaching, because I take full accountability for everything. If my coffee burns my lip, I'm mad at myself because I didn't get up 5 minutes beforehand. If it's raining outside and I get soaking wet, I get mad at myself for not being prepared with an umbrella or a second change of clothes. Like, it's those little things that you talked about the micro, that really help the outward life that you live. So in terms of codependency, you brought that up. What exactly is codependency? Because I'm unfamiliar with that. So can you elaborate on codependency and what that means? I'm just curious, what is codependency?
So very simply, codependency is dependency on others for your self-worth and your emotional regulation. To be super simple about it. It can manifest itself in many ways. One of which could be an addiction to the approval of others, which leads to things like people pleasing, saying yes when you mean no, and then resenting people for it. It could present itself as attention seeking, wanting to go to clubs and get attention from guys online, that kind of thing, right? And it's very much rooted in a lack of love or lack of validation, nurturing, attention, affection. Something significant to your worthiness was lacking when you were little, and then it groomed you or trained you to be very acquiescent to the needs of others at the expense of your own. So if you, I'll give you my example, and many people who listen to this might resonate with it. I was a child of divorce. My parents divorced when I was only 3. And by the time I was 15, I already had a stepmother and a stepfather. So I had only child with 4 parents, 4 different personalities to navigate. I became very hypersensitive to everybody's moods. It trained me to be highly empathic, but at the same time, very acquiescent in that I didn't want to ruffle anybody's feathers. So that made me a good girl. So I was being praised for being so independent. She does everything on her own. She doesn't ask for anything, this kid. And I kept doing more and more and more of that because that gave me approval. And as a little kid, you associate your approval of your parents with survival. If your parents approve of you, you live. They feed
Right.
you, they clothe you, right? So this is very primal young thinking, right? But if that's not handled as you grow older, that lack of attention, just that whatever it is that you needed that you didn't get, you're going to start now looking for it in others.
Yeah.
And that's where codependency kind of comes into play in relationships. It could also manifest itself too with like a lot of control freakiness. Everything has to be controlled and done the right way. People have to behave a certain way in order for you to feel okay. And it ends up really being a detriment to relationships. And then finally, codependent people are the other side of the coin to narcissistic people. So codependent people are typically perfect prey to the predatory narcissist
Mm-hmm.
because the narcissist is a taker and the codependent is the giver. So the
Okay.
codependent is, I will do more for you. Just please love me. Please love me. It gives a very chasing kind of energy. And the narcissist is, I'm going to let you chase me. I'm going to let you worship me. And then when I don't need you anymore, I'm just going to roll you up like an old Post-it and I'm going to throw you out. And then it
Okay.
leaves the codependent like, oh my God, where do I go for my love now? Because they don't know how to generate love for themselves. So I had to learn all of that and heal myself of this. And in doing so, built a following, was totally out there with my healing process, the books I was reading, what I was learning, all this stuff. And it led to my leaving, or better said, applying all the skill set that I learned through my 23-year marketing career, PR, marketing, etc., into my own business, and then getting trained as a coach, getting the accreditation that I got and all of this, and then really moving forward and building that business. And I've loved it ever since. I started coaching officially in 2016. I became certified in 2017, so I've been doing this a bit, and I love it. I love having these types of conversations. I love being on podcasts. I love helping my clients, and we oftentimes handle their issues, handle whatever it is that's going on. They feel empowered. And then we also talk about, how is this going to apply in your world? What decisions are you going to make? How are you going to like take what we've talked about in our session and live it out in the next week, right? And it's great. It's great. If I can have, be a drop in the ocean of people's, expansion and healing, then cool. Then I'm all for that.
Yeah. So you brought up narcissism and you brought up codependency. In terms of like codependency, I could be completely wrong. That sounds like a category that a lot of women could fall into. And with narcissism, it seems like a category that a lot of men can fall into. Now, I want this to kind of circle back into what I brought up in the beginning about men and women's relationships. The reason why I bring it up is because now that codependency, does that seem like something that could be a, how do I say this, a positive in a relationship just because they are that giver? Doesn't that it can't that be considered a good thing just because you are that giver? Am I incorrect on that? I'm just curious.
So yeah, there's definitely benefits, obviously, of giving and being nurturing and taking other people into consideration. Where we get into a different level with codependency is that important little piece, which is at the expense of self, right? So if you're interdependent, then that's the goal. That's the optimal in a relationship. That's when you're separate people, you're a team, you love each other, the roles are clear. I give this, you give this, needs are met. It's like awesome, right?
Right, right.
When it's codependency, it's a little more of a manipulation. It's a little more of,
Oh,
I want these things from my partner. Therefore, I'm going to be like this. I'm going to behave like this. And when I
interesting.
don't get those things from my partner, I'm going to resent them.
Interesting.
That's
Gotcha.
where the rub is. Now let's take the narcissist side of the topic. So healthy narcissism is what basically gets us out of bed, brushing our teeth, showering, and putting us out into the world in clothing and not naked. Right? Like, a healthy level of narcissism is what makes us buy certain clothes, makes us like to smell good. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Where it gets more dangerous is when it is that exploitative, malignant narcissism where it's just Machiavellian and you're just trying to use people for your gain,
Yeah.
and you're manipulating them by what is called love bombing them, by feeding them all the things that will evoke an emotion. They will become close to you. They'll want to be with you because emotionally you give them the feels, you make them feel good. Yet they are exploiting you. They're helping you go right into the direction they want you to go. So when you look at gaslighting, people trying to sell you on an idea that you're seeing with your own two eyes, for example, in our politics, the economy is fine. I'm sorry, I just went and got 10 groceries and it cost $120. No, it's not fine,
Seriously, you're not
right?
kidding.
Like, don't sit here and tell me things are fine. It's not fine.
Yeah, don't tell me the sky is green, right?
Right. And that's gaslighting. And that is a tactic of narcissists, major
Mm.
tactic of narcissists. They want you to deny your own reality, to question what your own two eyes are seeing. So it's a very, predatory thing. And when you have a person like that connecting with a person who's a giver because they want the love, there's that quid pro quo exchange. Give, give, give. I get your love. Give, give, give more. I get more of your love. As opposed to being a self-loving, sovereign individual where no one can run fucking game on you because you don't give a shit if you get their love or not. If
Yeah.
you get it, wonderful. I love it. I welcome it in my life. If you choose to leave me tomorrow, all good. I got God. I got me. I attracted you. I'll attract someone else. All
Yeah.
good. And when you have that, no one can run game on you. So that's
Yeah.
what I mean. In the micro, if you were to heal codependency, there is no way in shit you're going to tolerate somebody telling you that the economy is fine. Because you're like, no, I did this work on myself. I was in a relationship with a narcissist and he told me the sky was blue when it was gray.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now my government is trying to do the same shit. I can see it as clear as day. So that's why your own inner work makes you so sharp on anyone else out there trying to run game on you. That's why I love doing what I do.
For sure. I think we call that street smarts. I grew up in the inner city, and I
Where'd you
wanted
grow
to,
up?
I grew up in like the Worcester, Boston. Like I
Oh.
lived in, yeah. So Worcester is a big city in Massachusetts. It's the
Mhm.
second biggest populated city, and then Boston. I lived in Boston. The reason why I bring those up is because even amidst the whole COVID vaccination thing, not to bring up another quote unquote controversial topic, but when that all played out, I was not one that was like, "Hey, let me go get the jab." And one of my friends was like, "Why? You don't care about grandma?" And it's like, "Well, hold on, hold on. Grandma's 86. Let's stop and think about this real quick." And I remember saying to someone who was like, "Why aren't you doing it? All the studies are saying that, blah blah blah." I said, "I'm going to come at it from a very realistic standpoint. That's all I can do. If I was walking the street and somebody said, hey, I got some free food. Come here, though. Nah, not really that hungry. Why? You don't want food? It's good for you. You should eat food. It'll help you live. Nah, I already said no. This is free food, and if you don't take it, you lose your job. You're not going to be able to work. You're not going to be able to do this. That should have been an alarm bell for anybody, in my opinion.
1,000%.
The fact that it was like, oh, here, take this free thing. Nah, I don't want it. Why not? You're going to make everyone around you sick. You don't care about people around you? No, I do, but like I trust my immune system. No, thanks. I'm good. But then you'll lose your job. All right, you won't be able to get your pension. You won't be able to work. You won't be able to this. To me, I was like, that should have been an alarm bell. But I share all that to bring it back to the codependency thing, is that when you bring it up like that, where people would give themselves and lose themselves, I can see how that could be a major red flag. And even like the narcissistic tendencies that you were talking about, because see, I'm naive, right? When I was thinking about narcissism, I was thinking about like, okay, I don't 100% know what that means. Maybe it's someone who's just confident, overly confident. And then while you talked about it, I did look it up, and I did see it said like healthy narcissism traits. And I guess like all things, right? There's a fine line, but when you go ahead and you try to blur and go in between and go too far extreme, like we just talked about earlier, I think that that's where it could be this dangerous zone that you can find yourself in, which is scary to think about, because relationships are so tricky and they're so finicky, and people are going to let you down, but God never will. So I want to bring up this one final point while we wrap up. As I just mentioned, God will never fail you. People will. I've heard so many things where people say, yeah, but the church, the people in the church, blah, blah, blah. And I say the same thing that I said to you earlier, my example. Okay, is that priest a normal human being? Yes. Is his boss a normal human being? Yes. Is the person who's checking him? Yes. So someone is in that line is going to make a mistake, right? There's going to be a crack in that shield, and there's going to be some way to get in. That's how humans work. But we need God. In terms of today's society, do you feel like they're trying to take God out of today's society, which is what is causing a lot of these issues? Because as I mentioned even earlier in this podcast, 20 years ago when I was growing up, schools would talk about God, stores would talk about God, TV shows would talk about God. I was watching a TV show the other day that I watched as a kid, and the whole premise of it was talking about Jesus, the Virgin Mary, and it was with the characters of the show, but they talked about that. They praised it. They emphasized it. Do you feel like that is one of the biggest issues in today's society, is the fact that God is almost minimalized, so much so to the point that you can almost openly mock Christ.
Right.
And nobody will say a word. But you can't openly mock other things. I don't need to say the examples. Everyone is smart and can read between the lines. And if you're not smart, then you're not listening to this podcast. No, I'm kidding. Do you think that... Yeah, kidding, not kidding, right. Do you think that God being taken out of today's society has been the biggest reason as to why it is going the way that it is?
Yes, 100%. And when you go down that rabbit hole and you get into the juiciness of communism and the juiciness of destabilizing a nation, and one of the key things to do is to remove God from the culture. And so this normalizing the mockery of God and Christianity and whatever, it is part of that. It is a deliberate, intentional method, tactic of Marxism, precursor to communism, whatever ism you want to throw at it. And it is deliberate, and it is unfortunate that it had gone to this level. It got to this level. There were things that happened over the last, I'd say, 30 years. It really kicked off in 1970 when the 70, 71, it really started with the money, the monetary system. It was like taking off the gold standard. Fiat currency ended up putting us into a debt culture. Everybody got a credit card. Then feminism came into that at the same time with Roe v. Wade, and women were like, fuck you, I'll get divorced. Like that whole, you saw the divorce numbers in the 70s skyrocket. I did like so much on this just for relationship stuff in my career, but also for my own healing. Because I wanted to learn, like, how did I get the way I got? How was my 50, at the time, 45 years of life in my healing? And even still, how did I get decade to get decade? How did this influence me? And I saw that when I was a little girl, springtime meant first communion where I grew up. All the little girls in their dresses, little brides. You don't see that anymore.
No.
You hardly see that. I remember thinking it was the coolest thing ever because on my first communion, there I am in my little dress, my veil, and at the time my grandpa was driving limousines for some designer in New York, and he took the limousine and put me in the limousine and the family to ride me around in my little dress. And we came to a red light and there was a bride, and she was in her limousine and she took down the window and I was in mine and I waved at her. I was so happy. And this was two sacraments happening at different times of a woman's life, me as a little girl and her as a bride. So this was very beautiful. But now you're lucky if you get invited to weddings anymore.
Yeah.
You're lucky if when you do go to a wedding that it's held in a church. Now they're doing it at the catering hall. They're doing it, it's not really God centered.
Mm-hmm.
There's no sacrament there. It's like a party with clothing and costumes, but they lost the spiritual aspect of this union. And I think that's why relationships have been getting such a diluted focus.
Yep.
Women having kids with multiple men and then being a single mom.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, no, I value myself, I value these children that I want to have, and I'm not having children without a father in the home. Because I see the value of men and I see the value of the Trinity, right? The patriarchy really is, when you are rebelling against the patriarchy, you're rebelling against God, God the Father. That's the hierarchy of the hierarchy. And it worked for millennia. So, it's sad. And yet, God is so good that just when you think they're trying to count him out, he does something like makes Trump look at a chart at just the right time. And cool little miracles start to happen, right? And in the micro, you'll see miracles in your life every day. When you want one, when you believe you're worthy of one, when you ask God, show me the way, show me, I want this to happen in my business. You assigned me with this calling, like you want me to help people in this manner. So help me with this, whatever this is. And the solution will come. I think we are going to start moving more towards that. I feel like the pendulum is shifting in this country in a really meaningful way. And this mocking God thing, you can't do it. You just can't do it and think that you're going to win elections when the Olympics mocks God right in front of everybody's face worldwide. And you're going to think that people are going to say, I made my first communion. I did my confirmation. I did my sacraments, and this just doesn't feel right. Even if I haven't been to church in years and years and I don't really practice through the church, I have a relationship with God one-on-one. Whatever your thing is, watching that didn't sit right.
No, it didn't. It didn't. And I'm glad that there's people who are standing up for it finally and that are willing to understand that we're here to stay. God is not going to be mocked. We're not going to allow it. And you're right. There are miracles every day. There's a miracle every time we wake up, right? Every time we wake up, that is a miracle. I remember as a kid, we would say our prayers and say things like, if I shall die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. And the fact that he hasn't taken our soul yet, and we're still enjoying the world as it is and able to be ambassadors for Christ, at the same time knowing that we do have an eternal home, it's a beautiful sight. It's a beautiful sight. So I could have talked to you all day.
I know, it's so great.
Lisa, you are amazing. Thank you so much. for talking with me, chopping it up. I
Yes.
definitely want to do a part 2 at some point. You are now
Let's do
forever
it.
a friend of the show. I've just sworn you in. I knighted you. Please plug yourself in. Where can people find you, follow you, all that good stuff?
Cool. So if you want to find me on TikTok, you can find me at Lisa the Love Life Coach 1A. I had another account, they booted me off. So I went 1A free speech, get it? So Lisa the Love Life Coach 1A. If you just Google me, Lisa the Love Coach, it'll pop up. My socials are set up that way. I know it's, maybe you'll have it in the show notes. My direct website, which is probably the easiest way to get in touch with me, is lovequestcoaching.com. And there you can get, because you stayed and hung out till the end, you can get your free love life assessment over there. So there'll be probably a link in the show notes, right? Free gift. I'm a giver.
I got
Got to
you.
give my free.
I got you. I got you, my friend. I got you. Well, once again, thank you so much. All right,
Thank
party
you.
animals, thank you so much for tuning in to this fantastic episode of the Reyes Reflection Podcast. I know it was a little different. I know you heard my opinions more than usual, but it was such a great conversation. I can't wait to have Lisa on again. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and follow me on those socials at I'm Nathanael Reyes. Make sure you show some love to ARAVE Cards, Jocko Fuel, Mad Rabbit, SMACKIN Sunflower Seeds, and Lisa. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, may you live, may you love, and may you thrive. I love you all.